the C-Forum group, and they have their monthly meeting today as well. So this will allow them to attend that and this if we started a little earlier. So I thank you again for taking time to be with us. The agenda and all materials are in board docs. Hopefully you've had a chance to review them. I know that Denise, and we thank you for sending everything out a few days ago in advance that you could look at all the items. We have a number of items that they will be sharing with us today. And to start with, though, we need to first approve the minutes for the last meeting we held, which was, I guess we have is October 9th. So I would, if you hopefully have had a chance to review those, dust a few cobwebs out probably to remember all that was discussed back then. But I would accept a motion to approve the minutes for October 9th.
I have reviewed the minutes and make a motion to approve the minutes from October 9th.
Thank you, Clint. Is there a second to that motion?
Julie, I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. I do appreciate that. Any discussion, any changes that might need to be made? Hearing none, then all those in favor of approving the minutes for October 9th, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none.
I did have one question, and I don't know if it's going to come up later, but in the minutes it was described that like around 15,000 teachers had signed up for the Reimagine Teaching program. How many cards did we actually give out? Do we know a number, or is that going to be later on? Or
Laura, if you want to answer that, or
sure, it was about 7,800 as I recall. Tim probably has an exact number.
okay. I don't know if they'll be reviewing some of that in their presentation, but thank you, Laura, for just answering that question up front. So that's a good number. That's a lot of items to have to, or a lot of applications that you have to approve and look at. That takes time, and they'll. First on the agenda today is a legislature update, and that will be done by Ray Timothy, our executive director. Ray, we'll turn the time over to you. I'm sure this has been a interesting session thus far. It will continue to get more interesting as it goes along, and hopefully you'll have good news for us. So, Ray.
Thanks, Rick. It's nice to be with everyone here. We sure appreciate all that you do, and we value your expertise, and we rely on you also understanding what's happening at the legislature so that you can share that information with your friends and the groups that you represent. The first thing that has happened is the committee that we've been working with for the past 10 plus years, the Retirement and Independent Entities Committee, was dissolved. And so they took all of the organizations that have reported to that committee and spread us out onto other committees. And we are assigned to the Infrastructure and General Government Committee. And it seems to be a really good fit. We presented last Thursday, a week ago yesterday, and there's only two people on that committee that were really familiar with us from our past association, but we were well received, and I feel pretty good about working with them. I'd like to share my screen with you here. And the first thing that I would like to do is show you. Are you seeing the homepage from the legislature? Okay, thanks, Clint. This is where I go to find out what's happening at the legislature. It's le.utah.gov, LE meaning legislature. So le.utah.gov, and most of you probably already know this, but this is just a brief reminder. you can go onto this site and you can find out, you can look up legislators, find out a little bit about them. You can look up the current bills that are being discussed. You can look at current Utah code. What is the law saying right now at this point? And then you can also look up the specific committees. And so I like to go to the committees and then to all of the committees, and then I just go down alphabetical. And again, it's infrastructure and general government appropriations subcommittee. Click on that, and it'll take you to that committee page, and it shows you all of the meetings that have been scheduled and that are being held. And they add to that usually about a month at a time. I'm surprised it isn't beyond February 9th yet, but they meet on a regular basis, whereas the Retirement and Independent Entities Committee met as needed. And so we have a little more consistency of a regular meeting schedule with that group. You go there, you can also, you can put down the date of the meeting. They're meeting right now. You can look at the agenda, and that pulls up the agenda for you of what's happening at this point. The other thing is that I like about it is that you can see who the committee members are. So if you know any of these individuals and you have an opportunity to talk with them, especially if they are your representative or your senator, it's always nice to know who's on the committee that we work with. Like I said, we had only 2 members. We had Senator Maine was on the previous committee, and Senator Harper was also on that committee. So everyone else, it's my goal is going to be, establishing working relationships with them so that they know who we are and what it is that we do. The next thing I wanted to share with you is just a reminder of what our funding request is for this legislative session. We're asking for two things. We have 2 priorities. And the first one is to restore the funds that were cut in the last couple of special sessions. As you remember, the legislature had talked about tax reform. And so they went about the process of taking ongoing funds of ours anyway, and converting our ongoing funds to one-time funds. And the reasoning behind it, I didn't clearly understand, but I was told that by converting our ongoing money to one-time funds, it would force them to come back and readdress it again and recommit those funding dollars once tax reform was taken care of. Well, you remember that they never did do tax reform. So our ongoing funds sat there as one-time funds. And then when the pandemic came, they went and they started sweeping all of the one-time funds and holding it back in case of emergency that they could use it for that. So we not only lost the ongoing to have it designated as one time, they also took the one-time funds away. So we had to dip into our emergency reserve funds to operate on. So we're asking, the very first highest priority is for them to restore those funds that were cut. And that's just over $5.3 million. Priority number 2 is to take care of growth and operations. Every year, on average, we add 25 new schools to the network, or new district buildings to the network. And so that would be the next thing that we need, is the growth and operations. It costs us about a little over $600,000 to connect those facilities, the hardware costs, and then we have the ongoing circuit costs that we have to pay. So we need the one-time and the ongoing. And then we have on this one-page funding request, we have a list of what schools we are connecting and where they're located, so that our legislators know if there's a a particular school in their area, they can give the additional support that we're asking for them. It's nice to know that our funding request, everything we are asking for, was put into the governor's recommended budget. So we have the governor's support on that. And then the legislature has also taken action and passed House Bill 6 and House Bill 8, which would be the base budget bills, which means that the money that we have right now we're operating on carries forward. If they were ever to not pass any further funding appropriations, then we at least have the same dollar amount that we have right now that we'd be able to go into the next year and be able to continue to function. So that's where we are as far as committee, as far as our funding requests. There are a few bills that I'm watching right now at this point. A couple of them I haven't had a chance to read thoroughly, but the first bill is House Bill 38, and you may hear about this. It's called School Technology Amendments, and this is from Representative Zegmiller from down in Washington County, and it's a bill that requires the providers, any software providers, to make sure that the software is filtered, that students cannot use that software somehow to access pornography. And the bill doesn't change any of our operating practices. I've spoken with the sponsor of the bill, and he understands that, but he wants it to be a message bill to any of the providers that if they want to operate in Utah, they need to make sure that students will not be able to use their tool to access pornography. The second bill I'm watching right now is House Bill 36. It's a telehealth mental health program. That's the pilot program for districts to be able to contract with mental health service providers via telehealth. The real change to it is there was a sunset provision, and it takes out that sunset provision and would guarantee ongoing funding for that if it passes. There's House Bill 72, a device filter amendment. I believe this is Representative Pulsifer, and it requires companies that make the devices to ensure that students, when they log on to their devices, that they're not able, again, to access pornography, that it would direct that device to some kind of a filtering system built into the device. So I'm not sure where that bill will go, but that's the purpose of it. And the last one I haven't had a chance to read, and maybe one of you know what it's about. It's House Bill 304, Digital Opportunity Access Amendments. Okay, if you haven't, I'll be pulling it up and reading through it as well. I'd like to, so that's what I have as far as bills are concerned. And again, it's really important for you to understand what the bills are that impact us, so that as you talk to your legislators, that you would have an opportunity, because you have great credibility in their eyes. They have a great deal of faith in you, and they listen to you. So we'll try to keep you as informed as we can. Couple of successes since October. We may have already bragged about the Daggett project up here in the northeast corner of Utah, but we were able to lay over 70 miles of fiber from Vernal up to Manila and then over to Dutch John, actually going through Glen Canyon Dam, or excuse me, which dam is it? Flaming Gorge Dam, sorry. But it's the first time they've had fiber in that county. And what it does is it allows us to connect the schools to the network via fiber. And it's also the hospital, Duchesne Hospital in Roosevelt has a clinic up in Manila. And so it allows them to have fiber connectivity as well. And then down in the Four Corners area, this is since our last meeting, we have completed the fiber going down to Montezuma Creek, Whitehorse and Montezuma Creek, down in that Four Corners area. And that's really quite an accomplishment to get that to them down there. The remaining project that we have is in that Four Corners area. We're about a year and a half out on completing connectivity to Navajo Mountain and Monument Valley. Right now we're using microwave, which is, it's working, but fiber is much better. So that's, Rick, that's what I have to report on. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to respond.
Ray, did you want me to, I just looked at that digital opportunity bill and I know what it is. Did you want me to give a quick overview of what it is?
Yeah, please, if you would, Kelly. Thanks.
Yeah, and this bill came up last session. There's a group called Utah Communities Connect that worked with, they kind of work with any partners that are doing any kind of digital literacy efforts. And one of their constituents approached Representative Provost Bailey to do a bill that essentially what it does is it creates a staff position within the State Libraries Division within Heritage and Arts that would work with different groups on digital equity issues, so digital literacy type work. So it's interesting because it's a bill, but it's really it's a bill to create essentially a position in that organization, and then that person would coordinate with like GoEd with Rebecca's office and with us and whoever else on any kind of digital inclusion. So it's just to have a specific targeted person working on those issues in Heritage and Arts.
Thanks, Kelly.
Ray, may I ask a question? This is Scott.
Sure, Scott.
We have some media coordinators in Canyons who are not supportive of House Bill 38. They've asked me to do anything I can to not support House Bill 38. I don't see it as a problem. Not trying to demean, our media coordinators, but I really wanted to take my lead from you guys. Again, when I read it, it doesn't seem to change anything that we're doing right now. From your perspective, does UETN support House Bill 38?
Our board has taken a neutral position on that. They opted not to oppose it or support it, and so their position is my position as well. So we're neutral on that bill. It came out of committee with a vote of 13-1, and it's a message bill. And Representative Zegmiller wanted me to clearly understand that it is not reflective of what they think about UETN and the work that we're doing. They think very highly of our organization and respect what we do. It's a message bill to the software providers that if they want to do business in Utah, they need to follow the guidelines and the rules and operate accordingly.
Perfect. That helps me. Thank you.
Other questions? I'll give you a couple of questions, Ray, from me. First, on the budget request, on your priorities in that, I know that they have a lot of one-time money. What are you hearing as far as your request for the reinstatement of funds from previous years? Is that looking positive?
As we worked with the legislative fiscal analysts, they're telling us that they're strongly considering that they're talking about restoring a lot of the funding that was cut.
Okay. The second question is the one on you mentioned Senator or Representative Polson for his bill on HB 72. Is that something that we can actually do? I mean, because it looks like it's requiring the manufacturer to make this.
Yeah, it's not something we would do. I mean, it does say that. I mean, it's like your iPhone. If Apple, you want to sell iPhones in Utah and to students, and it's got to be able to have some kind of filter with the phone. That's how I read it anyway.
And I'll open that up. Scott, have you had any chance to think about that, or any of those that you work in or the IT side of things to um, what that would mean for you?
You know, I've read the bill. I think it's you know, as Ray mentioned, it's really targeted to manufacturers and forcing them to implement technology to filter inappropriate material. I'm not sure how. I don't know how a manufacturer is going to accomplish that. But I guess from being the IT director, I don't need to worry about how the manufacturer is going to accomplish that. So from my perspective, I'm fairly neutral. I do worry about, you know, if you tell a manufacturer they have to do something, it could increase the cost. And again, I think it's really hard. We all know filtering. We have one person deems inappropriate, another person may deem appropriate. And we have a wide spectrum of what people think, and to force a manufacturer to decide what's appropriate and inappropriate is a challenge as well. So, you know, we've moved to one this year, which has forced us to be the internet police at home now as well as at school. And I have all sorts of crazy requests coming in on a daily basis. The Salt Lake Tribune is too liberal. Will you block that? And KSL is not stopping mixing church and state. Will you block that? And you know, it's from every side of the aisle that people want 35,000 different filtering requests, a different status for every student in the district, and it's impossible for us to do. So you think about that with the manufacturer, I think it's a really challenging request, but that's my take.
Rick, are you muted? We're not hearing you.
Of course, I'm muted. That's the. I was just thinking as I've reread this bill, just rereading some of the beginning parts of it, and that I don't know if this really impacts education so much because we've filtered the devices anyway. It seems to be much more targeted to the consumer market.
Yeah, I think it's mainly the reason that we're looking at it is just a heads up of what you may see coming to your district as students purchase devices, and as schools purchase devices as well.
Thank you. Any other questions on the legislative session? What's going on there? Thank you, Rick, for your insightful report.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
Next item on the agenda is the budget reporting, and I'm going to turn that over to. It looks like Tim and Katie will be leading this discussion.
Well, thanks, Rick. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for letting us take a little bit of your time. So here's our plan. I'm going to give a little introduction here to the advice and the feedback that we would like from you, and then Katie Blunt from the UEN Professional Development Department is going to lead us in an exercise using Nearpod to sort of gather your feedback. And I know some of you are familiar with Nearpod. We have a statewide license for this tool that teachers are using. Katie probably has statistics, but it's especially in the last year, it's been used. This tool has been super effective and super useful. So with that, let me just share my screen quick here. In the past, or I should say, I think most of you are familiar with the UEN strategic plan. And this is what it looks like if you've forgotten. It's our 5-year strategic plan made up with this set of initiatives down here on this left side. And so one of the things that we've always wanted to do or tried to do is to help our constituents see how we're accomplishing these initiatives. Because as we all know, what UEN does is pretty broad, and we serve a lot of people. And sometimes it's difficult to really show what UEN is doing. And so we've taken that 5-year initiative, strategic initiative plan, and we've tried to break it up. And this is what it's looked like in the past. I'm just showing you this example. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to redesign this page to make it easier to see the things that UEN is working on, what we've accomplished, what's in progress. So you can see this is what it used to look like. So you can see here's the initiative across the top here. And then as we look down, you can see sort of what's happening, the goal, and sort of updates here, with kind of a lot of information kind of crammed on here, and sometimes too much information maybe, or too cluttered. So we'd like to change this page to make it more simple, make it easier to see, easier to see what UEN is doing. So I'm going to have Katie jump on. She's going to lead us in a Nearpod exercise. And while she's getting started, just a little bit more. We've mocked up a few examples for you to look at, a few different styles and color schemes and designs. So you'll be able to give your feedback, which ones you like, which ones you think are easy to see the information. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie. And in the chat, I'm going to put a link to the Nearpod page as well as the access code. So sort of, if you don't have your chat open, take a look at the chat. And I'll do that as Katie is getting started. All yours, Katie.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Yeah, so to join the Nearpod, as Tim said, you're going to just go to join.nearpod.com, and the link is in the chat. And then you will be prompted to enter a code, and that code is in the chat as well. It's X5QHY. And so we'll let you take a moment to get into the Nearpod. Great. I can see that we've got 8 of us in there so far. We'll give you another moment to get into the presentation. And as you're getting in, I'll just let you know that I'll guide us through this presentation, and I have the ability to share out some of the answers if we'd like to. If typically when a teacher uses Nearpod, she does not share her screen with all of the results of polls and quizzes. But if we decide that we would like to see that screen in this meeting today, I can certainly do that as well. And there are a variety of activities in Nearpod. For our purposes today, we're sticking mostly to the ones that allow for polling as opposed to teaching or quizzing. So anyway, just little information there about Nearpod. Okay, we'll get started. So I wanted to just, again, review what Tim had said, because I was trying to process like, okay, what exactly are we looking at here? So this is a report of the 5-year strategic plan. The plan has several areas that are outlined on this screen. And then specific initiatives are carried out in each of those areas. in order to meet the goals of that strategic plan. And then the progress is reported to stakeholders, as Tim showed you. If you would like to, you can go ahead and click on the link to access the current web page. Tim did show that to us already, so if you are feeling confident in that, you don't necessarily need to look at it, but I provided the link there if you would like to. And as soon as I move on, it's going to pull you out of that page, so I'll give you just a moment to scroll through if you'd like to.
What do the percentages on the right mean? Is that percent completed? Is that percent of the budget?
It is percent completed. Good question. And you'll notice that if you scroll down the page a little, some of those have then changed from percent to be complete with the check mark. And so yeah, percent completed. Okay. All right, we'll move forward. So as we said, this exercise is about getting your feedback. So the questions sort of go from general down to pretty specific about elements on the page. And first, I wanted to give you a chance to just explore some of the screen captures that we've taken of some of our mock-ups, as well as a couple of others from other entities. And I just wanted to remind you, as we look at these, the purpose right now is not to worry about the data on it. In fact, some of the data is not even from our organization, but instead the layout and how easy it is to access the information. So on this slide, you have a slideshow that you get to control how quickly you browse through these images. Each of the 6 images, as I said, is a mock-up. So take a moment and just kind of click through those images and get a feel for some of the differences in the possible layouts. You'll be able to reference these images as we go through as well. So don't worry, you don't have to memorize everything right now. All right, I'm going to move forward unless somebody needs a little bit more time to browse. If you do, just wave at me or speak up. Great. Okay, so the first thing we wanted to know is which, just as you first look at it, which overall layout is your favorite? You'll see that this screen here is just giving you a preview, and we've labeled each of the potential layouts with letters that will correspond to the poll question that I will bring up on the screen next. And when I move to the next screen, which I'll do right now, you're going to see a poll question. And in the upper right-hand corner of this poll, you will see a little PDF rectangle. You can click on that PDF, and it will actually open another tab in your browser where you can reference all of the choices that were available to you, so that you can remember what they looked like and see them a little bit bigger on your screen. And then actually, if you keep that tab open, it'll help with the next few questions as well. So when you're ready, go ahead and just give us your first overall impression there. So I have been asked to go ahead and share my screen with WebEx, which is fine. I can also, just so you know, as a student, I can share, well, as a teacher, I can share out to you the results of these polls after, and it will go to each individual screen. But just so that you can also see what it looks like from my side, I will go ahead and share my screen as well. And there we go. Okay, so you can see that we're getting quite a variety of responses. So if you haven't made your response yet, go ahead and do that now. All right, so if I go ahead and click share, like I said, you can see a little graph there of our results. So far pretty varied. So I'll unshare that. And then I did tell Tim and that if he wants to pop in and have more discussion about any of these answers, we certainly can. I think for this one, let's just get a feel for the first few answers, and then we'll pause and have some discussion as needed. Unless Tim would like to pop in, you certainly can.
Yeah, I think
right.
just, Katie, let's just pause for a sec to see if anybody has a comment, an initial comment, initial feedback. And we're going to get a little more specific
Yeah.
on some things as we go. But any initial feedback?
And Katie, it's like it looks like the A, B, C, and F are all tied with 4 votes. I wonder if you could, are you able to go back and let everybody see those 4 choices, and then anybody that chose one of those, if you want to speak to why that was your preferred?
Sure. Yeah. And you can also reference those on the tab that should be still open on your computer that had the PDF. So you can scroll through and reference them that way as well, if you would like to, while we also see the responses here. Yeah. So we've got choice C at about 21, 22%, and choice A at the same. And then from there, F and B. So C, A, F, and B.
So this is Tiffany. Are you ready for me to explain why I picked what I picked?
Yeah.
Okay. I like B because I like the green. It's dynamic, and it seems to me like it demonstrates that, you know, things are moving forward without kind of having the implication of a green, yellow, pink. Pink's not really moving. This indicates that everything's moving. It's just moving at different rates. And then I also just like the color scheme a little bit better because it's a little more bold. So those are my initial impressions.
Thank you, Tiffany. Anybody else?
This is Shelley. I really liked A, and that's not necessarily about the color scheme on the site. I kind of get what you mean, Tiffany, on the colors are kind of muted, but I like the cleaner look. I like the less text. I like the ability to click on something to learn more if I want to have more information, but some of the other choices I thought were too wordy, and I prefer my kind of dashboard information to have less data and let me go and request it instead of it being pushed at me.
Thank you, Shelley.
This is Rick, unmuted. I really liked C, and I think and mostly we revolved around the fact that I could see the subtopics to it. So I like C. You know, sometimes you know, at least that's the way in my comparison and looking at them. Some were just the bigger categories, and the C broke it down into the subcategories or sub items to see where those are at. That just gave me more information.
Great. Thank you, Rick.
This is Marie. I really liked B, mostly because it was easier to skim through. It had the main goals, but then a little bit more information, and the green color on the right, like the scale, was easy to determine the status, as opposed to like C had all of the statuses, and I wasn't sure which status they were because all of the statuses were listed. And then, like for example, on D, your eye has to kind of bounce back and forth across because it's not all just horizontal. So, I really liked the layout of B. I thought it was easier to kind of get a snapshot of everything in the status without your eye having to move across the page and trying to interpret what the status was.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Clint?
Yeah, Clint from SDC. Yeah, I picked B. I liked A, B, and C as well, but I like B overall because I thought the progress was more positive as far as like nothing was yellow or red. That
Yeah.
that seems like there's something wrong. And some of these things are big projects and they just take a lot of time, and it takes us some work to get through them. And so we kind of on a spectrum instead of pass fail kind of a connotation to me.
Great comments. Anybody else before we move on? You'll have other opportunities too if you're still thinking.
Yeah, could you remind me who the primary audience for this is?
Sure. Yeah. In fact, Tim, do you want to answer that?
Because I think that would inform a lot of how I thought about this.
Mm-hmm. Not hearing Tim.
I can jump in and answer
Sure.
that. Diane, great question. I mean, ultimately, we're accountable to our board for the progress that we make. So the strategic plan is something that the board has adopted, and it's a 5-year strategic plan. So this is how the board has asked that we communicate our progress quarterly. So what are the projects we're working on, and how are we doing with that, and what are any potential issues that the board should be aware of? So this is a way to communicate that easily to our board. It's a public document. It's on our website. So you as the advisory council members and the UTN advisory council would also be able to comment on it and see it. Good question.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, well, let's take a look at the next poll question. It's similar, but the focus of this one is really about, which we heard in some of the comments, which layout is best for accessing that information quickly. So if you're going to this site and you just want to get that quick look, which one is the best for that? Now, when we go to the poll question on this one, remember that you should still have your tab open that has the PDF so you can scroll through and look at them. You also have the option in the upper right corner of your poll question to click on that image to remind you if that's an easier way to look. So either way, and go ahead and answer when you're ready. Okay, we've got a few more people still answering. So if you haven't put in your answer to this question yet, go ahead and do so. So we've got similar results. There we go. I'm going to share those out, but you can also see them on my screen. But some have definitely stood out, but we've still got, oh, it looks like we do have somebody who still needs to answer. But we've got B and A kind of taking the lead there on that one. So do we want to have more discussion or move on forward to some of the details? Okay, not hearing anyone who needs comments right now. We'll move forward. Great. So this question is a chance for you to write some of the comments that we've been hearing out loud and let us kind of store them in written answers. So again, which one do you prefer? We also wanted to point out that it is possible to combine elements of these different possible layouts. And so if you have some thoughts about, well, I really like this from A, but this from E or whatever, you can explain that in this question. So we'll move forward. And this one allows you to type right in to Nearpod to answer the question. Once again, you can reference the PDF tab or click on the little image to remind yourself of the different choices. Okay, we'll take another minute or so on this. So if you're still typing, go ahead and finish up what you're sharing, and be sure to submit your answer. Looks like we're still getting a lot of comments about A, B, and C. Some saying they like them just the way they are. Some people saying they like that color bar that we've been talking about in B, but moving it into a layout like A. So these are great responses for us to consider. Some comments about how to add maybe a little more detail to the progress. Okay. Any discussion needed on this, or are we feeling okay with what has been typed in? Yeah, and I'm seeing some typing in the chat as well about some agreement with some of the answers that they're seeing. So good. All right. Well, if you haven't submitted yet, go ahead and submit now, even if you're kind of finishing up, and that's some great feedback. And I think that you'll find you'll get an opportunity to respond about some of the color schemes as well, which is coming up quite a bit in some of these answers. So. Great, there we go. We're getting a few of the last ones in there. And as we get the last few of those answers submitted, just a reminder that if any point you get bumped out of Nearpod or accidentally close the screen or anything, that the link and the code are still in our chat, and you can always jump in if you were late coming or if you somehow lost your connection and join right in where we are. Okay. Great. Well, let's get down into some of the details a little bit more then. So we wanted to take a look at some of the links, the navigation between the different sections of the report. So first is a question about the links that we currently have. These are jump links, and you can see this arrow is pointing out what we're talking about there. And so we just wanted to know how clear and usable those particular links were. So on this question, let's see. There we go. You're being asked about those jump links. And if you're not sure what jump links do, in the corner of your screen, you do have a little video that you can play that shows how they operate if you'd like to. And then you can go ahead and answer this question.
Hey, Katie, I went back to look at the chat, and now I've got your screen really tiny on my. How do I get back to Nearpod?
It should be open on a separate tab, Ray. So it would just be clicking on the tab that Nearpod is open in. And if you've lost the tab, you can always go back to join.nearpod.com and put that code in again.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Now, Katie, I gave a waffly answer. You made me choose a binary, but I kept thinking, is it obvious to people like us that do this work all the time on a computer or not? So
yeah,
that always flavors where I'm at.
Yeah, I understand. All right.
Okay.
Well, we've still got quite a
Can I
few
ask
people
a
who
quick-
haven't. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Sorry, this is RC Callahan from Weber
Hi.
State. I just had a quick question. I hope I'm in the right place. I was playing the little video about the links, and I can't get back from the video to the question.
Sure. You
To
should have a
answer.
little X in the corner of the video that allows you to close it and go back to the question.
A little X.
Yeah.
I don't see a little X, so. Well, I will look around. Sorry.
Okay. If you really get stuck, as I
Oh,
said,
there
you
it
can
is.
always. Did you find it? Oh, good.
Well, you have to roll your mouse all the way up to the top of the screen, and then the
Okay.
X comes down. So, okay. Got
Good.
it. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's go ahead and get answers in for that one. And I think we'd maybe like to, go a little bit more quickly through some of these questions, and then we'll have some discussion boards towards the end. So if you haven't put in your answer yet, go ahead and do so. Okay. And we can see here that we do have a fairly close split on that question as to whether it's an obvious thing or not. And maybe it does come back to your comment about, well, I guess it depends on the user. All right, well, let's move forward. The next question is a draw it opportunity here in Nearpod. And you can see that the question at the top, this one focuses on then other options for navigation through the different sections. And so you'll see at the bottom of your screen, you have some tools there for writing on this draw it, either with your mouse or your finger if you're on a tablet. And you can go ahead and circle the one that you think would be best, and then be sure to submit. Great, we're getting some good responses here. And if you're still finishing up, go ahead and click submit. Okay. Yeah, Rich, I can put that code back into the chat for you. There you go. So join.nearpod.com, and there's that code again. Well, great. Well, there's more variety here than I at first expected because of the first answers that came in. Okay, well, you'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about that in coming questions. Let's take a look at this one. This one focuses specifically on the way that some of that detail information is shared. So similarly, you can go ahead and circle, and also a reminder that in your tools on the Draw It, you have a text tool. So if you want to add in any comments about why you chose what you did, or even suggestions for other options, you can. I find the text tool a little bit tricky. When you click on it, you can go ahead and type, and then before you click off of it, you can change the size. There's a slider at the bottom that lets you adjust the text size, and then you can move the whole thing over if you need to. So if you feel like adding some explanation, you certainly can.
Question for
once
you,
again,
Katie or Tim. Are all these options all about the same as far as ADA accessibility, or are there some harder, better to make accessible than others?
Yeah, so that's definitely one of our considerations, that regardless of what design is picked and what method of navigation, they'll all be the same level of accessibility to a page reader.
Okay, good.
okay, well, excellent. So we've got some variety in these answers as well. So I think it's good that we've got some questions coming up for a little bit of maybe combination and explanation. If you haven't submitted yet, go ahead and do so. And I'm going to move us along. Great. Okay, so now we're going to go back to a few poll questions about specifically the way that we're showing progress in these projects. And so, as I said, we'll move along a little quickly, and then we'll have a chance for you to add some comments and chats into a collaboration board afterwards. So this first question has to do with specifically the kinds of progress indicator you prefer. So here's your poll question. And as in the past, if you need to reference which answer is which, you can click on the little picture in the corner and it will expand those choices for you again. Yeah, so Tim, as they answer, the question came up about mobile compatibility for these different choices. Do you know if any of them impact how well they would show up on a mobile device?
You know, we have a mobile version of the site so that it adjusts. So all the same data will be there, all the same information. And I can't answer specifically about the different layouts, but we'll make it work so that it is usable on a mobile device and easy to see, just possibly a little more scrolling.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent.
And that navigation that you're voting on will be important too, you know, how that, with the jump links or the tabs or the, will help with the mobile part as well.
Yeah. Okay, well, if you haven't submitted your answer for this one yet, please go ahead and do so. Give you another moment. This one is looking very heavy on the choice B side, so that's interesting. That came up a little bit in the beginning as well, that we kind of liked that option, so good. Okay, next question. So this one's about color scheme. This came up a little bit in the discussion before. And so for this one, we're giving you a choice between these, but then if you have suggestions, as I saw in the chat, you can add them on our discussion board coming up. So yeah, just which of these do you think is most effective? And again, you have the small picture in the corner of your screen if you need to expand those choices again. Okay, yeah, this is definitely reflecting our similar opinion just about the overall indicator. So if you haven't submitted your answer yet, go ahead and do so. And you can see how this one is turning out here. Definitely, we're liking the green progression there, but we've got a few other options as well. Okay, let's move forward. I think this is the final question about progress for now. There's also different styles, not just the color, but of how we're making any information about that progress clear. So We've even added in this other choice that we haven't seen for a little bit with some different symbols that represent status. So go ahead and let us know what you think about that one. And again, you have a reference image in the corner to help you answer. Okay, this is good. This is fine tuning a little bit of, yeah, I see that too. Okay, you'll have a chance to say what combinations you like in just the next couple of slides. So good. Yeah, so a little bit different take on exactly how it's being presented. If you haven't submitted for this one yet, go ahead and do so. Okay, so you can see this one's much closer. And so maybe it has to do with what Tim commented that it was a combination. Okay, well, let's go ahead and kind of finish up our discussions here. We've got one more question about just the presentation of status, and then we'll have two collaboration boards to finish things off. So this one, you can see the instructions are for starring and feeling free to add comments if there are things that we've forgotten, but these are additional items that could be combined with some of the things that we've seen. If none of them seem like you need them, then you can just submit with no stars at all. Okay, we're getting some good information here. We've got several people still working, so I'll give you a moment to finish up and submit those. Good, I see some text kind of explaining a little answer there. That's good. Okay, well, go ahead and submit if you haven't yet. We're definitely seeing quite a few who are liking the percentage, but there's quite a variety there. So it's good to see which pieces you're finding beneficial and want included. So let's move on to our last two screens here. So let's see. I'm not going to need to approve. There we go. Now you should be able to. Okay, so this is a question about whether or not you feel that this report should be printable. Your answers can be pretty simple, like a yes or a no, but you can also share your rationale for why you think that. You'll also see that as you post, that you'll have the opportunity to like others' posts if there's somebody who's given a good explanation that you agree with.
Kelly, is
Okay.
there a reason we can't see all the posts on our board? We see them really small on yours. I can't read them.
You should see them start to show up. Sometimes it takes a little moment for them to do so. You could also try refreshing your screen, and sometimes that's allowed them to pop up a little more quickly for me when I've been on the student side.
Okay, great.
Yeah. But so far it's pretty split, I would say. We've got people, a lot of us, I think this comes to an earlier comment, are pretty, savvy. We don't necessarily need that printable option, but other people might find it useful for particular reports and things. But so kind of split. Yeah. Well, if you haven't submitted a comment here yet, if you're in the middle, go ahead and post that. And then we'll move on to our last one and finish things up. Okay, and actually we can see that a lot of people have just decided to like that first comment, which was, I feel that web access is sufficient. So interesting. Okay. All right, let's move on to the last question. And I think this is what some of you have been waiting for. So the main question is, which of the featured features that we looked at today are most important? But then you also have the option to let us know if there are features we haven't considered yet. And then as we saw in the chat, you can also mention if some combinations of features would be good. So this is just your chance to kind of brainstorm all your last thoughts, suggestions. I saw some comments about different colors. And so go ahead and post what you'd like there. And again, you have the opportunity to like posts if you choose to. We'll give you just a couple moments for that, and then we'll be finished up.
So as you're, I'm going to jump in as you're sort of finishing your last comments. Thank you, Katie, for putting this together. Nearpod's a great tool. And thank everyone for your detailed information. This page is one of 25,000 pages on our website. So next meeting we'll start on those 25,000. Give us some help. Anyway, no, we really appreciate this feedback, and hopefully by next meeting we'll have a design for you to look at, and hopefully it'll be the easier to see, easier to read, and reflect the feedback that you've given us. So if you have any other last comments, we're happy to hear them, or you can go ahead and write them in on the board that Katie's using right now. And just a reminder, you all have access to Nearpod, I believe, right, Katie?
Yes.
And so if you're gathering feedback or want a little more interactive presentation, you can use this tool. And this is just, some of the simple capabilities of it to gather feedback. Lots of it's a much broader tool with all sorts of stuff.
Absolutely. And I was telling Tim, it's too bad we're not teaching them something, because then you'd see all of the, interactive elements that are included on the teaching side. We were more assessing, but yep, it's a great tool. So obviously you can reach out to any of the PD team members for help if you want to learn more about Nearpod. So, and Tim, I think what I'll do is I'll leave the Nearpod open. And so as long as anybody has it open in their tab, they can continue to add comments to this collaboration board. And then we can move forward with what's next on the agenda while people finish up. And I will stop sharing my screen as well.
All right. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
And thanks, everyone.
Thank you both. Appreciate that great presentation. Thank you for mentioning that Nearpod is available to all educators in the state of Utah as a part of the funding that UEN received last year from federal funds in that they had, and we have that. Is that Laura? I believe that's a 5-year contract. Is that correct? So that's even better news. Moving on into the agenda, we will now move into the item 2.3, Reimagine Teaching Productions. And I think Katie Garrett is going to be leading this discussion. So Katie?
I am, thank you. It makes it a lot more fun now that we have two Katies. I gotta be, when I kept hearing Katie, I'm like, oh, is it me next? So I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so this is one of our many CARES projects that we had over the last half of last year. Many of you are familiar with the Reimagine Teaching program, and part of that was the honoring teachers for their extra work with the gift card. But another big part of that program was creating the professional learning opportunities and resources so that teachers could do that professional learning. So kind of the goal with that was twofold: to create those resources, respond to the emergency situation, what we had right in front of us, but then also had an opportunity to do something that had a long-term impact. So when we're thinking about all these resources that were being created, we wanted to make sure that those had life beyond 2020 and 2021 and kind of this emergency situation. So we knew that we had the existing service of eMedia, and of course that's where my brain went, as a repository to collect and house these resources long term. So with eMedia, we have the option to create what's called a hub. And these are kind of smaller site sub areas of content around a specific project or curriculum area. So in this case, we took the Reimagine Teaching resources and created a hub. So I am going to hop in there now. And you can get there by going to emedia.uen.org. Most 90% of these resources are open. We only have one collection that isn't, so you can log in or not. But if you click on this drop down here, there's hubs and you'll see Reimagine Teaching. And so here you can search through and find only the things that were created as part of this Reimagine Teaching program. This doesn't search all of eMedia. And then you can scroll down here, and these are the collections, mostly with the partners that we worked with, but we have broken them out into the categories. So the Reimagine Teaching webinar series, that was hugely popular, probably one of the most utilized opportunities of the program. This was produced with the Leading Edge, and these are high quality webinars, and I'm really impressed with the utilization of those. So those are all available. We have accessibility resources, there's full webinars, and then also just like 3 to 5 minute videos. I'm gonna pull some of these up so you can see. Just on little tips and tricks that you can do to your online course or your Google Docs to make them more accessible and follow those universal design principles. So those are super useful. Going back, you remember the Reimagine Learning Conference from last summer, those are all there. We had a series of just individual Canvas tutorials on specific topics that were created. Go back here, our popular Learn at Home series is there. And I should say, we're still catching up with all the content that was created, so we're still missing a few of the pieces. So we'll have more, we have about 2 more partners to add for social and emotional learning, but we have some on equity and social emotional learning. Really, for me, it's just exciting to see this all in here because this really represents a lot of people coming together to create these in probably a 3 to 4 month period of time. We worked with the arts and science partners, the POPs, arts organizations, and IC science providers. This is where we were able to help them take their either online or their field trips and make them virtual, or help teachers give them professional learning on how to adapt their materials to use in a blended and online learning environment. So as you can see, high quality partners putting forward some great content. And then we also have our library partners. The state library created a great webinar series on adapting libraries for the pandemic situation. So I'm really happy to see this all in one place. And now I want to hop back to my presentation here. And really get your feedback on, we've got this content here, there's a lot of it, there's probably about 350 resources with more coming. How can we make these make everyone aware of this resource? And then how are there ways that we can adapt, that we can maybe trim things down or publish in different places so that these resources are easier to use?
Katie, it's Shelley. I wish I had an
Shelley.
answer to one of your two questions, but I actually have another question, and that
Okay,
is,
that's good.
is the Reimagine, that hub, going to be something you're going to try to continue to populate in other ways? Or are there going to be other opportunities to increase that information?
Yeah, that's something we're working with the professional development team here at UEN to continue to create content. I'm really impressed with their flexibility in creating, like you saw that Learn at Home series. That was something new that we did back in April. But yeah, we can continue to populate with the resources that we're creating. The team is doing Nearpod updates, Canvas updates, updates on the online library, and these will all be a part of this hub as well. Good question, though. Thank you.
Are these resources something that could be bundled together or, created into being a, one credit sort of MOOC or something they could do for micro-credential teachers or, something along those lines that they could, use the credit for relicensure, things like that.
Yeah, I think so. I want to say, and Katie Blunt can maybe will know better, but I believe that this is being put into a course.
Yeah, it is, Katie and
okay.
Clint. In fact, Jamie on our team is developing that course right now. And I don't remember, I could look on the registration page if it's going to be ready for spring or for the next term, but yes, the answer is yes.
Clint, it sounds like that's a recommendation from you.
Certainly don't see why we wouldn't. If the content's there and it's quality, yeah.
This is Tiffany, and I'd agree with Clint. And it's also really helpful to us if there's, I know it's really hard in a self-paced class, but sort of an estimate of how long it would take, because sometimes our principals will say, we'll pay you to go through it. And then the question is, well, how much? So just sort of an average number of hours, 4 to 6, 5 to 10, maybe that's too big. Thank you.
That would be kind of tied to how many professional learning hours or credits they could earn.
Right.
So I just double checked and the course is open for registration right now. It begins March 4th and it is a 1 credit course. And then of course the course description explains how credit hours work, but usually that's about 15 class hours plus homework. So anyway, it's all described in there and I'll put the link in the chat.
What's the title of the course, Katie?
It's called Reimagine Teaching, The Next Steps.
I'm still open to questions. I just closed my screen so that I can see your chat better if there's questions there.
I think it'd be helpful to have direct links to the Reimagine teaching resources. And, they have to go to media and find the hub. It should be on the banner on the front page of UEN, so that it's sort of very, very easy for everyone to get to it. But some direct links to these resources. You've actually saved me a lot of work today, because we're doing something at the state office on a sheet that we're going to be sharing, and I just have to put 1 link now instead of 3. So
that's good.
Thank you.
Happy to.
Because this answers all of those questions that I was going to go and have other resources and mostly I found them in different places on the UEN website. So having them in one place, very, very helpful.
Great. Well, I'll drop my email address in the chat if you think of ideas later or have more questions, but thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, suggestions? None. Then the quarterly broadcast report. And Katie, it looks like you've got this one too.
It's
I
actually
think Laura, yeah.
Oh,
it's actually me. And this is very brief. Those are just there for your
it is you. Sorry.
It's okay. Those are just there linked for your information. So each quarter we submit a report to the FCC that talks about our activities over the previous quarter. And then the other document are the programs that we'll be highlighting in March so that you're aware of those. And at any time, if you have feedback for us or recommendations, that's part of your role on the advisory council, and we welcome that. So the information's there. I don't need to discuss it anymore. You can see it.
And do take time to look at those. It's always amazing the quality and breadth of content that is available on UEN TV. So thank you. Going to have two committee reports. First, we'll hear from Shelley Bellflower on the USHE Teaching Technologies Council, and then Clint will take a moment to discuss the Utah Content Forum, C-Forum.
All right. Hi, everyone. The UTTC board met on January 9th. We did have quite a few good discussions, 4 in particular that I thought went well. I think the most important one I listed first was not the first discussion, but Tier 1 support that was purchased through the help of UEN and CARES funding was definitely a hot topic. Some different results at each of the schools on how Tier 1 support was going. Unfortunately, there was a meeting yesterday with the vendor. I did not get to participate in that support call, but I hope it went well. And I don't know who here, if anyone was in that call and could, RC.
Yes. Yep.
Can you tell us how that went?
Yeah, it went well. We were able to share some of our concerns with the challenges with L1 support. The main ones being the long wait times,
right,
and the understanding of certain reps of how to deal with specific issues. They did, Instructure did provide us with some updates on how they're addressing these problems, which basically were that they are hiring more people and they're requiring mandatory overtime. So sounds like it's hard to work for Instructure, but yeah, they are making some efforts towards that. Their wait times are down, but apparently they're still longer between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. So if you do have clients, faculty, teachers that are calling L1 support, have them try to avoid those times. I recommended that they have an online resource that shows real-time call volume so that teachers can take a look and decide for themselves when to call. They said they'd work on that, but that's about it.
That's great. A couple of other conversations that we had a discussion about online prevention, education software, or EverFi. We also talked a little bit about some schools were interested in Anoto, and that actually also came across as a demo, which we had earlier this week, which some of us attended, and I thought that was well received. Some schools really are excited about that. It's kind of an overlay of options that you can use for video. So some schools are definitely interested, others are not. And then a discussion about lockdown browser. So sometimes, as UEN helps us with our RFPs, which you guys have been great to do, we have these kind of discussions to say, are you liking the product you have? It's about time an RFP might need to be done again. And kind of those are the discussions that we have. We also did have some committee reports, which always seems to go well, and we appreciate UEN's support on the UTTC board and all they do to help us.
Thank you, Shelley. Clint.
So I'm here representing C-Forum, that's Content Forum, that's all of your technology trainers, your instructional coaches, as far as technology goes. Folks at the district who are helping teachers integrate technologies in their class. They meet once a month. This year it's been virtually, and it's focused around a certain topic. And let me share my screen. There we go. So I can show you what we've been meeting on this year. So it was UEN sponsored, then Utah's Online Library was the topic. Google, Adobe, we canceled last month. And this Canvas meeting is going on as we speak. And so as soon as we're done here, I'll jump over to this and we're going to learn about, the new analytics from Leslie Stark. She's our statewide customer success manager, does a great job with everything. And then some other breakouts. I'm interested in this Google Assignments LTI, but those are the sessions that are going on right now. And then a few more sessions on the rich content editor. Good things that came out of 2020 that might be interesting. And then this is kind of the big one. They're coming up with, they realize that a lot of K5, K6 schools have been, I don't want to say forced, but have been strongly encouraged to move to Canvas, just so that there's only one platform that parents need to know how to maneuver and how to navigate for their students. But there's been some struggles, and it was originally meant to be kind of a university tool, and it's slowly been migrating down to K-12. But they're really making some strides. They have a new K-5 elementary dashboard that'll make kind of all the different subjects that an elementary teacher teaches more accessible to kids and make the navigation for those younger kids a lot easier. That's something that'll be coming out, be ready for next year, but it'll be available to start working and training on March or April. So that's what's going on with C-Form. If you have anything for me to take back to them or have questions of what happens in C-Form or what needs to happen, let me know, and I'm happy to pass that along.
So Clint, this is Shelley. My son's in 6th grade. They're using Canvas. This is at UEN Elementary in Ogden, and the teachers actually are doing a really good job. I'm really impressed with it was easy for me because we used Canvas at Weber, and so of course I could transition very easily, but it's fun. We've had conversations about how to use some of the tools, and so I really appreciate that they're using the same platform. I think that is very helpful.
It's a huge help for parents, yeah, but a lot of the professional development hasn't come along with this switch. I won't say where I was or who I was talking to earlier in the week, but there are some teachers in our region that are using Canvas to put a link to their Google Classroom classes in there so that they can still use Classroom. Yeah, I see you smacking your head, Laura, and I did too. They're using Canvas, but just a link over to Google Classroom because that's what they've been used to using. So we have lots of work to do.
Thank you, Clint. I do appreciate that report, and that I'm looking forward to jumping into that meeting as well. Item 3.3 is just some recent video productions. We have I think an overview of what UETN spent their CARES Act, how they distributed the CARES Act funding. Katie did a new version, it looks like, of some good education news. And then an event that took place in Murray School District with the launch of their private LTE network that they're installing in their district, which might be a topic for a future meeting here to hear more about that. Laura, anything you want to add to any of those videos? Okay, so the thumbs up.
I really, really enjoyed the UETN Cares. Gave a great overview of the mountains that were moved last year and how many great projects were done. And I encourage you to watch and share that one with your stakeholders. It was really well put together.
Thank you, Clint. Any other comments if anybody has watched those?
Since Katie Garrett is in the meeting, I just wanted to point out Katie's the executive producer for all of our media products, and she did a fantastic job with these. And there's many more on our YouTube channel that you could spend hours watching. But her team has learned how to do production remotely in the past several months, which is also a challenge. And I'm also really proud of their work. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you. It's much appreciated.
Probably another link that should be on the front page. Some of these things on those banners that go by. For the good of the group, and I know we're out of time, and that is there anything that anybody needed to bring up in today's meeting or plant the seed for the our next meeting? Hearing none, and that our next meeting is scheduled for April 2nd, I believe. Is that correct? Is that correct?
It's also a placeholder for the annual retreat. So depending on the direction that we get from the board, we'll keep you posted if that's a retreat event or something different.
Okay. So be looking for further information on that in the near future. In that.
What day was it? Sorry.
April, I believe. I'm just going back to our.
Okay.
It jumped down on me again.
Oh, next meeting.
You have account.
It's there.
And links to today. Yes, April 2nd. It'll be one of the other. We'll keep you posted on that as soon as the board has made their decision, and they'll be meeting in 2 weeks. And that. Greatly appreciate everybody's time and input. Grateful to the staff for making it a very interactive meeting. Really appreciated the work on the strategic plan and being able to see Nearpod in action, but also to be able to have everybody being able to give feedback. So thank you for that. And with that, I will say that it's time to adjourn. I don't think we'll need to take a motion or anything on that, but thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the day and a great weekend coming up.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.